Hello, and welcome to Musings from the Mystics. I'm Marnie.
And I'm Natalie. We are your guides on this crazy and sometimes tumultuous journey we call the human experience.
Each episode will share our musings about the current energetic climate,
how we're navigating these times,
and tips to help you get the most out of your journey.
So join us to be awakened, empowered,
and expand into conscious action. So welcome. This week's topic, this week's mission is authentic communication. And this can be a really meaty topic.
Yes, it can. It can be very lengthy as well.
It can be lengthy and meaty because, communication is still an area that I think we have a lot of growth opportunity in. How we communicate verbally and also how we listen in communication, I think, are two really important aspects of this. So Natalie's she's on a roll here. She's got lots of things she wants to say. So I'm going to let her take it and we'll go from there.
So we're going to start off, and I know some of you don't need all of this reiterating that we're going to go through, but it is an important topic, and it is how we deal with the world around us. So it is kind of a big deal, and some of you listening may say, oh yeah, I know that, but even as much as we know, when we get to some of these later points in our discussion, like I have this argument with my husband every day. Like, we speak two different languages, you know? He's from Mars, I'm from Venus. It is a very real thing.
And yeah, even if you're not from those particular planets, we come to the table with our own set of values, ideals, upbringing, subconscious programming, desires, expectations, and all of those things actually inhibit and cause the problem, right? They inhibit our effective communication and end up causing us problems because we assume whoever we're talking to has the same set of values, subconscious programming, expectations, desires, and they don't, right?
Correct.
Almost never are you on the same exact page with someone when you're communicating. And so when we dive into this idea of authentic communication, yes, there are some really good points. And also we are rewriting, everything.
Yes.
How we do everything needs to change. And communication is challenging because we do that every day, all the time, in many ways, even verbally and non-verbally. And are we doing it authentically? Probably not.
No, because when you're communicating, you're trying to convey something. So, and it could be different every day. Like, I'm thinking of this National Treasure. I always have the movie references. I'm not sure why I have so many. And I really don't watch that many movies, but if I like it, I really like it. But in National Treasure, at the end of the second National Treasure, I think it was called The Book of Secrets, they're talking about communication, and he said, well, sometimes you say fine, and she's like, but sometimes fine is a good thing, and sometimes fine's not a good thing, and you're so good at solving puzzles, you have to figure it out. And
wrong.
We don't want somebody to have to figure it out, but if I'm having a bad day, I might just want you to listen. I might not want you to solve my problem for me. So those are the two basic things. Like, am I just trying to vent and get it out? Or do I need assistance and advice? And those are very important.
Oh, but you jumped. Let's go back to the fine point. If you say fine and you don't mean everything's fine, that's on you.
Yes.
That's not on the listener to try and interpret today what your fine means. You need to be authentic in what you're saying. You need to be authentic in, actually, I've had kind of a rough day. I'm tired. Could you just listen to me and vent?
Right.
Or, yeah, fine. I'm good. Today was a good day, right? That's up to you as the communicator. And I think in relationships, this is really common that the spouse expects you to know what you mean. They want you to, you're supposed to know me and read my mind. No. That is not their job. It is up to you to authentically communicate. And if you're not communicating authentically, that's not their fault. And then you come into if they're not listening to you, that's a whole nother sort of thing, not hearing you, but
right. Well, and you're right, and that fine word, that's a good word. That's
part
of why I picked that word, because no, I'm fine in that tone means leave me the hell alone and go away. Or how's your dinner? It's fine. Like fine wine, fine dining. It's fabulous. Like there are so many
meanings,
fines.
Right. But it's still, even if you have an attitude attached to the word, it's still not up to the other person to interpret and decipher it. And I have the opposite problem. People try to read between the lines when I speak. And I'm like, no, I will tell you exactly what I'm thinking and feeling. Don't try to interpret. Listen to the words that are coming out of my mouth, because that is what I mean. But most people, so you have both sides of the coin. People are either trying to insert their own interpretation of your words based on their own social conditioning or programming or subconscious programming or their own values, or they're taking you completely at face value and you're expecting them to read between the lines.
Yes. So again, part of the authentic communication piece is, hey, could you just listen to me? Mm-hmm. Or, hey, can you help me with this? Or, hey, I'm having the bad day. Get back. Mm-hmm. Stay away.
I'm in a bad mood. Unless you want to fight, leave me alone.
Right. I have a barrier around me that extends 10 feet. Do not enter that unless you want to challenge me. So
throw down.
Right. We are going to fight.
Yeah. So I think the what we're saying here is, well, one, communication is already a challenging subject, and two, authentically communicating is really asking us to show up in a different way.
It is. And the other part of that, which we just briefly kind of said, everybody has, no matter what the dictionary says, mm-hmm. there is a different, I mean, look up the Urban Dictionary on this word, or look mm-hmm. up, Merriam-Webster on this word. Right. There could be 25 meanings to fine.
Or where you grew up culturally. My ex was from New York, and saying dinner was okay was like a huge compliment. And I'm like, no. Okay, it's not a huge compliment.
Right. No.
Right? So even where you grew up and the words that are used to define certain things don't mean the same to everyone.
No, they don't. And that's part of the ask. Ask questions. Ask, what do you mean by this? Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, I don't understand.
Right.
And again, it's both people. It's on the person communicating and the person listening of, can you repeat that? Or can you choose different words?
Or this is what I'm hearing. Is this what you mean? Which is kind of an old way of communicating in relationships, of mirroring what someone is saying, which mirroring's okay if your definitions are the same. But
Correct.
If you're mirroring something and in your mind you're repeating the words that you heard, but your subconscious program is interpreting it as something else, that's a problem.
So it is, and it can be a problem. And again, ask. That's the purpose of communication. It's okay to ask questions. And if somebody's having a bad day and you're asking those questions and it's not going over well, say, okay, let's take a break.
Right.
Like, it doesn't have to be done immediately in this hot minute, especially if it's a hot minute. All those things that we've told you about in our previous episodes. Take a second, breathe, ground yourself, and then say, okay, now I'm ready to talk, instead of having a full-blown argument just because it's a misunderstanding.
Right.
And that happens regularly.
Yeah, you were talking about that you and your husband often there's a misunderstanding in communication because you're showing up to the table with your own subconscious triggers and programs and what have you.
And even language. Again, two different things. I'm okay. It's just like you said, the word okay. Some places that's a really good thing, and some places it's not. So, and automatically assuming. I think that's where it's the automatic assumption, like, oh yeah, I'm speaking very clearly. You can understand what I say. Mm-hmm. Well, not necessarily.
Right. Because the other person doesn't have the same ideals, values, conditioning, programs, triggers, or definitions for words, if that's the case. Yeah, we have to take off the table the assuming, mm-hmm. the reading between the lines, and the attachment to what was said. So I know people will often throw, well, you said this. Yeah, but you're taking it out of context,
Correct.
right? Because the minute it enters somebody else's words enter into your psyche, it's going through all the traumas and all of the conditioning that you have living inside and reinterpreting and taking it personally. And you're attaching to that. You hurt me. I was talking and it had nothing to do with you.
Right. Right. And we can go back to like grade school and teach the I am statements, you know, and that makes it actually does make it less triggering when you throw the, okay, Marnie, you hurt my feelings by what you said, right, instead of saying, I'm feeling this way by your words. Like mean the exact same thing, but it's taken two totally different ways, because adding this is how I'm feeling.
Yes. And to add to that, yes. And also, we have to stop putting how we feel onto other people's shoulders.
Correct.
I'm not responsible for you having your
not.
feelings hurt.
You're not.
Unless I said something intentionally mean, like I was trying to be a bitch or something like that, right? Okay, then I could take responsibility for that. But if I'm talking and I said something and it's just something you don't agree with, or it triggered something, some past trauma you have, that's not my responsibility. No. That's your responsibility. So that's another piece of communication and saying, I am feeling this way. Own that completely. Take responsibility. I'm feeling this way. Why do I feel this way? Don't look to the person in front of you. Why am I feeling this way? What in my past is reminding me of this feeling? Because when we are in conflict like that, when we're in communication and someone has said something and it triggers us, the brain is not bringing this moment into focus. It is bringing literally every single time you felt that guilt, that shame, that embarrassment, whatever it is that you're feeling, it brings all that baggage to the present moment. And then that present moment is like extreme, right? We're like losing our shit and the other person's going, what the hell? I didn't say anything. Like it was a little comment. You're overreacting. And us women, we get that a lot. We're overreacting. But I don't think it's a gender specific thing. I think that what happens is we bring all that baggage forward into the moment. So we definitely don't want to blame the person in front of us. We want to look at our own traumas and challenges and say, okay, why am I feeling this way? Right. All the way from when I was 5 years old and someone embarrassed me. And so this feels so heavy. That's something I need to heal within me. I need to go in and have a conversation with my inner child and heal that, so that when I have a conversation with someone and I'm feeling embarrassed, it's like, okay, that isn't about this moment. Or I've healed all that and maybe it is about this moment and I need to set up some boundaries, which we're going to talk more about next week.
We are, definitely. But everything you just said is a communication too, saying, okay, yes, it's not you. Your words triggered something in me. Let me have a couple minutes to deal with this, sit with this, or we need to table this conversation until I have time to deal with it. And it could be, did we say this? Like calling my sister my mother is, I think we said this in one of our previous episodes, is like, that is an immediate trigger for, and that's an immediate trigger for a lot of people.
Most people.
Right, exactly. So
most women don't want to be called their mother and most men don't want to be called their father.
Right. Or same thing, like kids, you know, it can go on and on, but same kind of thing. Like, okay, you're calling me my mother. All right. So what have I done with my mother that caused this? What happened kind of thing? But it's still a step back, take a breath, and still let the other person know, communicate and say, it wasn't you, it was the words, but it's not you saying the words, it's from a long time ago. Or it could have been from last week, whatever it was. But again, nobody knows. Well, we are kind of mind readers, but nobody's essentially mind readers.
Don't assume someone's a mind reader or expect someone to read your mind, because even if you're having an argument with somebody you love who probably knows whatever, if they really stop to think about it, what's going on in their mind right now? You're assuming they're an empty vessel and they're there only for you to know everything you're feeling and responding to, and they have none of their own feelings and issues, and that's unreasonable assumption. So we're saying, let go of assumptions, let go of attachment, and ask questions and take the time. So communicate, I'm feeling really triggered right now and I need time to think about it. Can you give me some space? That's authentic communication.
That is. And there is a caveat to this. I mean, if it's somebody close, they could definitely be pushing your buttons too. It could be an on purpose kind of thing.
That's true.
And it could be on purpose subconsciously that they don't realize that they're doing it either. So there is that caveat to this as well. Like, I'm really pissed at you. We're getting into this now. So I know I'm calling you your mother because I'm pushing your buttons right now kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that's another key to step back and say, okay, this is too heated right now. Let's take a break.
Yeah. I don't think that's a caveat. I think it's just
Happens.
another aspect of, when people are intertwined in a relationship, that they will affect each other more than others, we'll say. And here's the thing, when you start to approach this, and it's going to feel like a really big job initially, right? Because it's like changing everything that you're doing, because all we do is communicate in some way or another. Taking the time to do it, though, will begin to change the relationship. Because if you're not always reacting to what is said, then the button pushing will cease. It's just like the bully story, right? If you don't react to the bully stops bullying you. It's the same kind of thing. If you change how you are communicating, eventually it ripples out to the people around you. They see that, oh, you want to be communicated with in a different way. And the only way, yelling at your partner and going, don't talk to me that way, is not ever going to make a difference. I can promise you that. It's never going to make a difference. What makes a difference is when you honor yourself and you show, this is how I want to be communicated with. But it's through actions and it's through words. It's not through assumptions or yelling at someone or demanding or expecting something from someone else. You show them by, you know what, I'm feeling very triggered right now. And then that gives them permission to be able to say the same thing. Oh, I cannot react to what that person says. I can feel triggered and I can step back. So we teach people by how we treat ourselves.
The other, and this is a good tip I learned and maybe a lot of people know it, maybe some people don't know it, but I learned it through all the processes of certifications and things that I've done. Whisper.
Oh yeah.
Whisper is a really good tool for this, especially if it's getting heated. And if you lower your voice and more of a whisper, you actually get more of their attention than yelling. Mm-hmm. Because it's almost like somebody totally tunes you out if you're at this high, loud octave and screaming,
or fast,
yelling.
Too. If you slow down, that also makes a difference.
Yes. So that's another good, okay, I'm going to talk a little calmer now, and I understand what you're saying. I see where you're coming from. I do or do not agree. Mm-hmm. I still need a couple minutes to figure out where I'm at.
The slower also allows us to process, right? If you're speaking slowly and softly, which is intentional, it gives you space to be intentional about what you're saying, right? Instead of just spewing venom out at someone or in that heated or defensive. Really, that's what happens. We get very defensive, and then you have two people defensive and nobody's listening to anyone. So if you're slow and thoughtful about what you're saying, you're going to be more careful in your communication as well. And more authentic because you're thinking about it, right? It's filtering through rather than just spewing out of the mouth.
It is. And in addition, I feel like this is a part of communication too, as how you feel about, nobody can make you feel bad. You allow it or you don't allow it. And that's a part of communication too.
Absolutely.
Back to is it trauma? Is it something triggered from childhood? Why are you hurting my feelings? Mm-hmm. Because I'm allowing this to happen. Right. And it can't happen if you don't allow it.
Yeah.
That's a big piece of this too.
And I think that's really hard for people to hear and accept, right? We're so conditioned to blame someone else. It's also the way the neurology of the brain works. It's the brain's trying to save you. So immediately it's someone else's fault because we don't want to feel bad, right? So we blame someone else. It's somebody else's fault, but it's not. And we need to start taking that autonomy and authority back and say, I am responsible for how I feel and I am responsible for what I allow to affect me. And that's hard because we're conditioned, and it's easy to say it's somebody else's fault means I don't have to do anything. You have to do something about it. But that's not authenticity.
Right. You have to make me feel better.
Which of course won't. Right? If you notice, if you're always waiting for somebody else to make you feel better, even if they do what you ask them to do, it doesn't make you feel better.
No.
Because whatever trauma triggered it in the first place hasn't been healed. And so that person can't possibly do it because likely they weren't the origin of the trauma in the first place. And even if they were the origin of the trauma,
it's not right now.
It's not going to make you feel better, them doing something. You have to do it yourself.
You have to do the work.
Yeah.
The work.
Every episode, like it's three full-time jobs.
Yes, or more. It is the work. And everybody's like, what is the work? Well, authentic communication is part of the work.
Absolutely.
Being intentional with your words.
Yeah.
Slowing down, talking, taking a break. Nothing has to be. And I think that's another part of conditioning too, is like, it's got to be solved right here, right now, right this minute.
Or yesterday.
Right. That's the 3D world we're living in at the moment. And you're right. Everybody wants it done yesterday. It doesn't have to be that way. Yeah. You get to control the speed of how you communicate and what is said.
And if it's important, isn't it worth taking your time?
Yeah.
Why are we in a hurry? Another really important thing I want to talk about, and I've found reason to talk about this in every episode, but since we're talking about communication, I feel like this is a good time to bring it up. And that is, as you're going through this process and you're finding your authentic self, your true you, and you're going through this work, it's likely you're doing it alone, right? Mm-hmm. It's likely that you do not have a partner, a family that is supporting you. If you do, awesome. You are one of the few. Mostly we're doing this on our own. And it is a solo journey. Even if we do have family doing it as well, it's a solo journey because it's really about us, our authenticity. So it's really important to communicate with the people you're in relationship with. I'm working on myself. I'm doing some things. Some things may be different. You may notice that I'm communicating differently, that I'm taking more time for myself, that I'm creating more space. Whatever it is that you're doing, communicate that with the people you're in relationship with so that they don't freak out and go, you've completely changed. You're not the person I married or the person I met or loved. What are you doing? And they don't get defensive. If you communicate and say, look, some things are going to change. Don't be afraid. It's okay. If you have questions, please ask me. If you're uncomfortable with something, talk to me. But I am working on myself right now and for myself so that I can be a better person and hence have a better relationship, whatever. But it's really important to have that conversation, to communicate these kinds of things to people so that they don't get into defensive mode. So they're not blindsided by suddenly you never cook dinner anymore, you don't clean the house anymore, or whatever it is, right? Whatever it is that you're not always fixing things, you're, whatever it is that you have been doing and the people pleasing or the programmed sort of gender roles or whatever, that you're communicating that these things are going to change, and just so you know, and don't be surprised.
And Marnie is 100% correct because I actually did that.
Good.
And no, I mean, I actually didn't tell my husband. I lived through that because I think I said in one of our previous episodes, like when I started doing the self-help books, which is where I started with Law of Attraction, I hid it from everybody. Mm-hmm. Nobody needed to know what I was doing. Like, you don't need to be in my business. And I did hide it from my husband. And then when I finally told him, like even still today, the other night he was watching sports on TV and he's like, you used to love football. I'm like, yeah, that's because I thought it was cool to love football. I don't think it's so cool to love football anymore. Like, it's really not my thing. I don't mind. I did the fantasy football. I did all that kind of stuff. And that's what he'll say. He's like, you did fantasy football. And I'm like, yeah, I did it because I thought you would really like that. I didn't really do that for me. So it's that part of it. And trust me, people, I lived through it. And I'm still dealing with that today, that I still have to say, I am a different person now. And I am not going back to who I used to be. And
also, I wasn't that person anyway. I was trying to fit into a box for you.
Right.
So that's a reason a lot of relationships break down when we become our authentic selves, because we presented, particularly women, we do this, we get into the box that we think you want so that you'll love us and not cheat on us or not leave us or whatever, that you'll still love us forever. And we contort ourselves into these ideals that aren't truly us.
Correct.
And so in that case, yeah, the relationship may break down. And don't stop being authentic because of that.
No.
Because you'll never find happiness. You're never going to find the joy, the beauty in life if you're contorting to be something other than who you are.
Right. And it truly does. It makes you miserable. And we've struggled. We've had our challenges. We're working through them. Like, I'm proud of where we are today, but I do have to say every now and again, I'm not that person anymore, and I'm not going back there either. Mm-hmm. And I have to stand firm in that, and I'll get the 25 texts like, hey, you want to come out here? You want to watch football with me? Are you busy? Can you do... I'm like, no, it's not what I want to do. I'm sorry you feel that way.
I have a thing about the sorry.
Yeah, I know. But
we apologize way too much. Why should you be sorry for not liking it?
No, but it's a conditioning because I'm sorry because I'm different now. Or I'm sorry that I gave you that expectation at some point in time and now it's different. But it is a conditioning. Yeah. And you're right, I'm really not sorry. I'm just, but it's almost just like a word to say.
Right. And also, we are an evolving species, right? We are, from the moment we're born, we begin changing, right? We don't stay tiny little babies forever. We grow, and physically and mentally and emotionally, and that journey doesn't stop because you turned 18 or because you stopped physically growing.
Right.
We continue to grow. That is the nature of our species. We continue to grow and evolve. So the idea that I'm going to be the same person I was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago is crazy. Why do we have that expectation that someone's always going to be the same? I hope to God that who I'm in relationship with evolves and changes, because if you're stuck, we're going to diverge, right? Our paths are going to diverge and we will not be in relationship anymore, because there's no hope of us growing together if you stop growing or you think you're going to stop growing. So this idea that you used to like something and don't like it anymore doesn't necessarily have to be because we did it to please someone else. But I used to like this and I don't like it anymore because I've changed is also a valid reason. And we have to allow people to grow.
And for all you scientific people out there, your body rejuvenates itself every 7 years. You have turned over all of the cells in your entire body every 7 years.
Yeah, at least, because some things are change faster. Yes. So this idea that we stay the same, or we need to stay the same, or we're conditioned to believe don't change is bad, is fundamentally against the nature of our very existence. It's fundamentally wrong.
It is.
Because we change. And so while we've talked many episodes now about these things about changing, it's to really peel back the layers of that conditioning, to peel back the layers of programming and expectations of friends, family, peers, society, to what is truly authentically us. And so I think that's really the human journey anyway of life, is to come back to that authentic space. And communication, because we don't live on an island alone, is
even though we'd like to sometimes
that would be really nice. Communication is a huge part of how we interact with the world, and so this is a key thing to really find our authentic voice.
It is. And even communication has evolved.
For sure.
It's... and
we don't need horses to take our mail.
Right, exactly. But I think that's the point of saying the evolving too. Mm-hmm. In all of this, even communication has evolved. And if we are stagnant, what's going to happen? Like, I don't want to see the outcome of that.
No. Definitely not. Yeah, I love that you brought up how communication itself has evolved. I mean, you think about, we now have all the information in the world literally at our fingertips within seconds.
Right.
That is an evolution of
Yes.
communication.
Yes.
Huge evolution of communication. So why do we think that the way that we talk to each other shouldn't evolve as well?
And change.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So work on your authentic communication. We're telling everyone out there, take a step back, breathe, and figure out what you want to say.
Let's come back to this values piece and I've brought this up before, the respect, disrespect, but we haven't really gone into it too much.
Not yet. It's coming.
So I don't know. We could kind of dive into it here. Respect and disrespect are personal values. They are not universal. Listen to me again. Values are not universal. They are personal. And it's really important to know that, because often people say things and they're like, oh, that was rude. You were so disrespectful. Saying my truth is not disrespectful to you, because my truth has nothing to do with you. My truth does not involve you. It doesn't involve your opinion or your values. It's about me. And I think we get really hung up on that. People get really hung up on, don't talk that way, don't say that, oh, that's rude, oh, you shouldn't say those words, you shouldn't curse. People are so weird about that. They're just words.
They are.
So that's another kind of like hurdle in the communication thing, is to really detach from this idea that somebody's words are somehow disrespecting you. And of course, there are exceptions to that. Someone can be incredibly mean.
Yes.
But let's call it that.
Right.
Let's call it, those words felt mean to me.
Correct.
And why did they feel mean to me? Because what trauma did I have that reminds me of? But even someone speaking meanly to you, maybe in their mind and their values, that was their authentic self. And that's how they felt towards you in that moment. And they were being authentic. Maybe that means you two have different communication styles and different vibrations, and you're not going to be friends or in a relationship. And that's okay.
That is okay. I think that's a very valid point too. It's all okay, because there is no right or wrong. There is no essential good or evil.
Correct.
Kind of thing. And that's a whole rabbit hole. That is, we are not going there today. But truthfully, there is no right or wrong. And we have to remember that too in our communications with everybody. And everybody is entitled to their opinion.
Yeah.
And I mean, here, like, you're talking about curse words. I mean, go across the pond and it's every other word out of somebody's mouth, and it's no big deal and nobody cares. Right. So somebody put value to those words, saying, oh yeah,
you're not a lady, or it's disrespectful, or it's rude. But it's not. Why? It's not rude to me. My values do not say that those words are rude. So if you think those words are rude, that's on you, not on me. I'm not being disrespectful. I'm following my authentic self. I'm expressing myself. Yeah, and that feels like a big prickly area. And having said that, we can also set up boundaries, which we're going to go more into next week, where, you know, I have boundaries. This is, my little delicate ears don't want to hear that. So when you're around me,
please refrain.
Please refrain. And then I can choose whether I want to be around you or not. If you're going to make me small and try to put me in a box for your sensitivities, then maybe we aren't going to be friends. Maybe we aren't going to have a relationship.
And that's okay.
And that's okay. That's right.
Because I and it is, a lot of these are repeating, but they are layers, and they are good things to have reminders on. Yeah, exactly. So it's okay. You probably don't have the same friends that you had in kindergarten. Now you might, but for the most part, you probably don't, because people evolve, people change, people figured out what they like and what they don't like, and it's all okay.
Yeah. So the authentic communication can bring up some challenges because you aren't alone on an island and other people still believe there's respect and disrespect and you do it this way or that way and it's wrong any other way, and you will come up against that barrier, and that's okay. Again, you get to choose if you want to be in a relationship with that person or not, or if you're willing to adapt yourself for that particular situation. And hopefully the more we move into that authentic space, that authentic communication, the less we have to tiptoe on around people, the less people are like scattering eggshells around themselves and saying you must tiptoe. That's what I've done. If people are like that, if you need me to be small, we can't be friends.
Right. And that's okay.
And that's okay. So it's a work in progress.
It is.
It's going to take time for the evolution of communication between humans in this way evolves, but we begin by speaking authentically, speaking our truth, not blaming others, not attaching to them, knowing what you're saying or understanding you, right? It's like you said, a multi-layered process. It's important to begin there. There are lots of facets to it that you will butt up against.
Yes, there are.
Which is why we mention all these other things.
Yes. And as we said, next week, boundaries is a big part of this values kind of thing that we're going to get into.
But boundaries isn't what you think.
It is not what you think. It's very interesting. Tune in next week.
The best advice, we've given you lots of tips and things, is like all the other things that are changing, this is a really broad and important aspect of that journey into authenticity. And it's important.
It's very important.
It's really important to, even if you do nothing else, begin with communication. How can I use my voice in a loving, authentic way? Thank you for joining us. Until next week, in peace and love and light, this is Marnie.
And much love and appreciation, this is Natalie.